we're seeing a more educated workforce globally now because of just consumers are just more educated around how to use, technology, apps, cell phones,
Right.
computers. The younger generations don't want to go in. They're just not growing up with that mentality of, I'm going to go work at my dad's factory someday.
The Industrial Sage Executive Series, sharing the stories behind game-changing executives, their organizations, and insights into today's industry challenges.
Well, hello and welcome to today's Executive Series on Industrial Sage. I'm Danny Gonzalez, and today I've got a very special guest. I have the Chief Technology Officer, Tom Galluzzo of IM Robotics. Tom, thank you so much for joining me today on the Executive Series.
Danny, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Well, this is your second time. I think we talked, I don't know, a year ago or so. I think it was post-COVID. It was after Modex, maybe, I think.
Yeah. It was right there in the middle of COVID, I think it was after lockdown.
Yeah,
started,
it was, it's just COVID time. Was it, BC, AC, whatever.
Right.
The time has been confounded. Well, a lot has happened, I think, since then, since we had spoken. And we're going to kind of get into that in a little bit. But first, for those who aren't familiar with IM Robotics, tell me a little bit about who you guys are, what you guys do.
Yeah, absolutely. IM Robotics, we are a warehouse automation company. We make autonomous robots to do any sort of material movement, transport around the warehouse. Our claim to fame is we're the first company that's really commercialized what we call AMMRs, which is autonomous mobile manipulation robots. That's a mouthful, but basically it means robot arms that can drive around, that also have it's a driven robot platform that also has an arm on it. The robot's able to see things and look around and find things, pick them up off the shelf for order fulfillment. So fulfilling products for e-commerce and that kind of stuff.
Excellent. That's awesome. So since we spoke last time, I think we thought it was, just kind of like probably March, April-ish or so of 2020. Things were kind of freshly like, hey, what's going on and how long is this going to be? It's only been 2 weeks, right? How has your business changed since then?
Yeah, good question. So we've deployed really our first scale deployment of our Swift AMMRs. We're doing a deployment right now with a company called AS Watson in the Netherlands. So about half of their products are going to be picked with our robots. It's really cool. We're starting to ramp up the number of items that the robots are picking. So it's kind of an industry first. It's the first time that we've seen mobile robots that have the ability to drive around and pick products actually do it autonomously. What we're doing now is we're expanding our market reach. I would say that what we're doing with Swift is a very specific niche market of kind of piece picking long tail items in inventory. What we're doing is we're expanding our market reach by taking the base platform of Swift and we're commercializing it into a product that we call Bolt. So Bolt is really a general AMR, autonomous mobile robot. And we have some really cool, unique features that hopefully you and I will get a chance to talk about here, but really starting to see a lot of the traction and takeoff in the market around AMRs and being able to just do various things on top of a mobile robot that has that ability to drive around and navigate by itself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, so you're mentioning, maybe I missed it there, that first customer, you said that in the Netherlands where you're rolling out with this. What space are they in?
Yeah, they're kind of like a CVS, Walgreens kind of company. They do pharmaceuticals, health and beauty items, cosmetics, that kind of stuff. So they have many different brands that they have across Europe and Asia, and they're doing a lot of online order fulfillment, a lot of online direct-to-consumer business for all of that health and beauty market space.
Oh, okay, excellent. That makes sense. So, do they have any like retail locations as well, or is it all more like?
They do.
Oh, okay. So a mix. Yeah.
They do.
All right.
Yep. All across Europe and Asia.
Okay. Well, yeah, that seems to be the sort of the story and the theme as we as we continue on with this. So, looking at these different changes, I know you rolled out with some new products. How has COVID really altered your future, or or at least maybe the way that you look at it?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different things, and we talked about this a little bit when I was first on the show. But basically, there's kind of the demand side and the supply side. So the supply side is really, it's just harder for folks doing order fulfillment, the companies out there that are trying to ship direct to consumers, to find the people that they need and be able to keep up with the growing online demand.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and we kind of have some of the data on this now, right? So with COVID, the e-commerce industry, which had normally been growing at about this 15% a year-over-year growth, in 2020 spiked by, I think, 39%. So it went from a 15 year-over-year growth rate to, in 2020, there was that spike because everyone had to order things right now, almost 40% growth.
It's huge.
We don't think a lot of that's going to come back, right? So that the demand side is that everyone's just buying, it kind of accelerated the consumer behavior to buy more things online. And so you kind of take the supply side, it's hard to find people to do this work, and then the demand side going up, autonomous robots or automation are really what's required to fill the gap for people trying to do that.
Well, certainly we've had a lot of, challenges, obviously, with the supply chain, but also you mentioned labor, right? Labor being a really huge story and a big piece. What's happening. But if I heard you correctly, I mean, you said, you guys aren't anticipating that demand is coming down. It's going up. I mean, it was already going up. But, with COVID, boom, it just, ignited it even more.
Completely. And I think that the future of work is forever changed now with, the way that we're buying goods online, but also just the kinds of work that people are interested in doing. I think it's a universal challenge in anything manual work. So it could be manufacturing. It doesn't have to be supply chain, right? It could be manufacturing, anything where people were previously just used as object movers and employed in just basic manual tasks. We're seeing a more educated workforce globally now because of just consumers are just more educated around how to use technology, apps, cell phones, computers. The younger generations don't want to go in. They're just not growing up with that mentality of, I'm going to go to work at my dad's factory someday. That's just not how it works now. The way it works now is, I'm going to learn how to use these apps. I'm going to go drive for Uber, or I'm going to go, work in some other gig thing, or maybe I'm just going to, work on making websites and mobile apps myself, right? That's where everything's kind of headed. So you're just seeing this generational shift from manual work to, electronic work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, kind of getting your crystal ball out for a second, I mean, you've already kind of, prognosticated a little bit here.
That's a dangerous thing.
I know it is. It's okay. It's all right. We'll explore the dangerous side of this. What do you think the future of the industry looks like?
Yeah, really good question. So I think generally speaking, we're going to see people doing more supervisory tasks of a lot of sophisticated automation within warehousing, supply chain, e-commerce. So we're seeing a lot of deployment of what's called goods-to-person systems now. So companies like AutoStore, Dematic, Intelligrade, they have lots of goods-to-person systems, shuttle systems, mobile robot systems. There was a company that Amazon, of course, acquired years and years ago called Kiva Systems, which is basically mobile robots bringing shelving over to people. There's a whole bunch of companies doing that kind of stuff now, too, that are bringing those solutions to market. And generally speaking, walking is going to be completely out, right? So people walking around the warehouse is just a thing of the past. It's totally a waste of time and money for employers to spend on just moving people traveling from location to location. So it's all about having the automation solutions bring goods to the person.
Yeah.
Potentially, and we're seeing more bringing goods to the robots, right? So companies like Right Hand Robotics, Berkshire Grey, they have these robot automation systems where the goods are coming out of an ASRS, out of a storage machine, brought to the robots, and the robots are doing some of the work to pick it. And really, it takes a ton of people to supervise that, to make sure the data is all correct, and so you're going to see a lot of those higher value tasks being done. A lot of the medial, just moving things around and picking items. Those tasks are going away, and those are going to automation.
It's super interesting because I remember, the first time going into this was years and years and years ago, but going into a warehouse that was, pretty automated, bringing in conveyor systems. There were no like robotics because that was still, I felt pretty far out, maybe Amazon was starting to roll out with it a little bit, maybe. But still just seeing some of that automation. And you're looking at a warehouse that wasn't massive, but that had 1 million SKUs, and just how you would pick orders was like, wow. It's like you're going down with a shopping cart and just like putting stuff in, like like you're going to Walmart, except we're doing it here, and just seeing just the ridiculous increase in efficiency by by being able to process and pick a ridiculous amount more orders per hour. Is crazy, and it's I remember walking in and just being like, whoa, this is crazy, this is nuts.
It's huge. The scale is massive, and that's only one distribution center, and of course the number of distribution centers is growing exponentially still as well. Mm-hmm. So there's still so much concrete being poured to grow this industry. But you're right. And your point about conveyor, I think conveyor is slowly going to kind of trickle out of the industry as well in favor of more flexible, autonomous mobile robots. We're starting to see some of that. So there's certain sweet spots where if the conveyors are long enough and the throughput is low enough, that it actually makes more sense to have a robot transport those goods from location to location in the warehouse instead of installing this big long conveyor that's not really going to get a big return on investment.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So, as we see the price of robots come down, we're going to see more and more of that.
Yeah, no, I could see that. That's for sure. It's been interesting to see some of these different solutions that are, replacing that. And certainly the flexibility piece is huge. That's a big capital expense. And then if you've got stuff bolted to the floor, it's hard to unbolt it and move it and reconfigure it and whatnot. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see the future on that. So let me ask you this quick, another question, another magical question, if you will. If I were to give you a magic wand, okay, I said, here you go, take this magic wand. What would you want? What would you use that to see to change in the industry? And I will give you one caveat. It can't be get rid of COVID. It's got to be something, something outside of that.
That's an interesting one. What would I like to see change? Gosh, there's nothing is just immediately coming to mind, but I do think I would like to see I would like to see more innovation in general. Just people looking to kind of think out of the box about how you take some of the technologies that are out there today and deploy them in unique, creative ways. We've seen kind of like blueprint concepts for having, for instance, mobile robots replace sorter systems, where you have mobile robots being able to, pick up items in one part of the facility and shuttle them around in kind of like a sortation process or something like that. There's so many things you can do with the technology today that still aren't being done. So there's just an incredible amount of white space out there for being able to do more interesting things with person-to-good solutions, being able to do more with kind of robots combined with pick-to-light, that kind of stuff that we think could be really interesting for a broader set of folks in the market. So it's just the challenges associated with that are the industry is more looking for the product to be fully commercialized before we could just go and just blank check innovate. So I think that would be the magic wand thing. If there was one thing that we could do where we could get some more of the R&D dollars to be able to try some of these models that we've kind of toyed with on paper before, they could be really interesting for solving some really unique challenges in the space.
So note to the CFOs, increase budget for R&D. Okay, noted, got that. No, that's awesome. Well, one thing I wanted to ask, and we didn't preface this ahead of time, but I just thought I'd bring it up. I'm curious, so recently, I don't know, sometime within the last year, you're CTO now. How has that, because when we talked originally, I think you were CEO or president or something. Talk to me about that transition. What has that been like for you? Because I know recently, we heard Vecno Robotics, same sort of thing with Daniel Theobald over there. I know he was excited to kind of focus on more product development and kind of, get into that. What has that been like for you?
I mean, that's my background is technology. So for me personally, it's been a huge help to have someone else really help carry the business and the leadership. And we got Lance Vandenbroek, who's fantastic. He was previously at Kiva Systems. He led their international sales and marketing. So he has a ton of experience in the space. He was also worked in some other companies in robotics. So he has experience kind of playing the CEO role before. So just being able to help manage the business, some of the executive recruiting, growing to scale. So it allows me to really focus more on just what I like, which is, evangelizing the technology, figuring out what the bigger strategic roadmaps are technologically and so forth. And, providing more of that leadership to the technical organization here at Iron Robotics. So for me, and I've made that switch before where I was CEO, CTO, because when we were doing fundraising for our Series A round, it was a point where it was so much of a full-time job that I couldn't both run the business internally and do the technology deployment that we had to do and go do the fundraising. And I thought, I'm probably going to be better suited finding someone that's more, likes to, have a million sales calls and talk to a bunch of investors. So we brought on a CEO for that portion and it ended up working out well. We found our Series A investor. And then eventually I was able to step back into the CEO role. And then, now it's at a point where we're ready to scale. And I'm happy to have Lance kind of take over the business end of things. And it's so there's double-edged sword, right?
Sure.
And it's, there's an upside and a downside to being the CEO. And not having to do the downside stuff for me is where it's helpful.
Well, absolutely. I mean, yeah, like you mentioned, it is a full-time job, like, trying to raise, and then you're constantly, talking to investors, and it's just like, hey, we have other stuff that we want to do over here. So yeah, totally get that. So well, congratulations on that, to be able to, focus on, on those great pieces to keep things, kind of moving and growing and doing that thing that we talked about, innovation, So, kind of wrapping up a little bit, what are you doing as a leader, as CTO, leader of the organization? What are you doing to really stay like on top of your game?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So I think you have to have some component of kind of just fun and tinker with technology to kind of keep your head into it, I think. And when you reach a certain level, you're not really able to write code anymore. You're not able to, design algorithms and do any of the detailed hardware design or anything like that. You're really just providing like top level, framework and architecture and process. I think for me, I don't ever want to lose sight of my drive to actually understand and actually build. And I have this just innate kind of, I don't know what we'd call a grain of sand to, the pearl and the oyster, just itch to always build and do things and learn new technology. So, just as a hobby, I started tinkering around with my kids, teaching them to program video games as an example.
Cool.
And we've just been having a blast, with that, just as a hobby on the side, just showing my kids. And then for me, it was an opportunity to get to learn, how to program into a game engine. And, it's inspiring. It kind of makes you think through, oh man, if we could program robots this way, it would just totally change the game of how we got work done and how efficient we could be with. So, I'm not saying we're doing anything like that yet, but it is really helpful to just kind of drive the creative process. Always get back to your roots and be able to tinker and have a hobby and learn the new tech.
Absolutely. No, I love that. I love that you're doing that, especially with your kids, and to kind of bring them into. That's such a great skill, for them. And what's interesting, it reminds me of, I remember a story. This was years ago, where I believe McDonald's was, a lot of their training modules were actually, they were using, this is several years ago. So they were programming everything and creating video games basically on the Nintendo DS. So as an employee in Japan, if you were working at McDonald's, you would go through all the training material on a game, basically, because they, realizing that, hey, with the culture, we love video games, let's do that. What's interesting in industry is, there's a company called Forklift Simulators, and we've done some work with them, and they're all doing, training on forklift driving using, VR technology.
Seen that. Super cool. They use virtual reality, and it feels pretty realistic, too. I've tried that at some of the trade shows.
Yeah.
I think there's a fun aspect of that, too, is if you can get your engineers, in the mindset of kind of gamifying their own work. And I think that's one of the things as a CTO I want to explore going forward is starting to, not think about work so much as just, there's this list of tasks and stuff I got to get done in my sprint, but thinking about how you can get creative and kind of, figure out unique ways that you can, change the code to make it better. Ways that you can, a lot of times we get bogged down with, something called technical debt, which is where you kind of program something initially one way, but it really wasn't best for the future. And I think I want to get, a mindset and a culture around changing some of the software over time so that you can kind of gamify the process of making it better as you go. You're not just adding things to something, you're kind of polishing that stone and continuing to revise it and change it and tweak it. And there's a fun aspect of that because you're trying to just figure out unique ways to leverage your time to be able to modify what you have and make it more efficient.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love it. I think this opens up again, and it goes back to this innovation piece, and it's, just tinkering and exploring and like I said, looking at all these different creative solutions that might help make that product better or create a new product, that solves a challenge. So, no, it's fantastic. So, we're kind of running up on our time here, but for those who would like to learn more about you guys, they can go to iamrobotics.com. Is that correct? I want to make sure I got that right. All right, they can do that.
iamrobotics.com. That's it.
Awesome. Well, Tom, listen, thank you so much for spending some time with me today on the Executive Series. It's always great talking with you, and I hope that we'll do it again. We'll have to do this. We're doing another catch up. All right. Well, great. Well, that wraps up today's Industrial Sage Executive Series. I can't talk with IM Robotics, the Chief Technology Officer, Tom Galuzzo. If you'd like to learn more about them, you can go to iamrobotics.com. And listen, if you're not on our email list, I highly encourage you to go to industrialsage.com right now if you're not there, if you're maybe listening on a podcast, and go subscribe because you're missing out on great content like this so that you can learn from your peers and you can basically see what things are going on and maybe expand some of your creativity and as we understand what other people are doing in different solutions. So that's all I got for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back next week with another episode on Industrial Sage.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode. Get notified every time there's a new episode by signing up for our email newsletters. You can also subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, please leave us a review so more industrial professionals can find us. Want us to tell your story? Go to industrialsage.com. This week's episode was produced by Rico Wiersma, filmed and edited by Optimum Productions, and our executive producer is Danny Gonzalez. Thank you for watching Industrial Sage.